Most of you out there think not paying tax is a strategy that buys your company time. But in 2026, you couldn't be further from the truth because HMRC have stopped playing ball. Now, if you never pay HMRC, you are about to be hunted. They have never been more aggressive. They're adding penalties, they're adding interests, and they're knocking on your door every single day. And you know, if you ignore them long enough, they're going to take your business assets and they're going to force your company into insolvency. And here's the scary bit. Listen, you don't have to be a bad person to get destroyed by HMRC. You can be a good director, but you panic, you delay, you use the VAT, you use the PAYE. It's like a temporary overdraft. Now, I spoke to a director recently. He basically ignored HMRC, okay? He didn't really know what to say to them because he had a short-term cash flow. He wasn't able to pay them. And in the past, what he'd do is he'd bury his head in the sand for a quarter or two and then stick his head above the parapet and he'd get it dealt with, okay? Now, what happened is they turned up at his door and they took control of his business assets, okay? They went round with a clipboard. He had to sign them over. And from that point, the HMRC owned his business assets. He wasn't able to pay HMRC. He ended up in an insolvency process and he's lost his business. Like it could have been avoided. Now, first of all, listen, let me tell you what I mean by never pay your taxes, okay? Let's define this properly. When a director says, I'm not paying tax, they normally mean one of three things, okay? So number one, you file, but you don't pay. So you might file your VAT, PAYE, corporation tax, but you don't send the money, okay? Number two is you don't even file. You avoid VAT returns. You don't put PAYE submissions in. You don't do your year-end accounts. And sometimes you mix in the two. Sometimes you file, sometimes you don't, and it's all getting pretty messy. And each one of them triggers a different kind of pain, right? Now, even if you can't pay, filing the return really matters. Not filing them makes HMRC assume the worst, okay? So for me, filing them is better. It is much better than not filing them, okay? Now, there's an escalation ladder that you might not be aware of, right? That HMRC use. So the first thing is your penalties will start stacking up, okay? Now, they can be late payment penalties if you file your VAT late. They can start fairly quickly, these things, and on the current VAT system, the first penalty can kick in at day 15 and more penalties can build if it stays unpaid, plus an ongoing daily style charge from day 31, okay? Then you've got VAT late payment interest. So on top of penalties, the revenue are going to charge you for not paying things on time, okay? And it's calculated the Bank of England base rate plus 4%, okay? So it's getting expensive. You've then got PAYE and NIC penalties. So if you don't pay your PAYE and national insurance on time, HMRC will apply penalties based on how many times you've been late in the last tax year, and it rises in stages. And then you've got corporation tax return filing. If you're late with your corporation tax and you don't do it in time, again, penalties apply. And if it goes far enough and they've just not heard of you, they'll issue something called a tax determination. And that's basically what HMRC think you owe. And you can't really appeal that. Now, if you miss one deadline, right, it's understandable. It happens, right? But if you miss two and you miss three, well, the debt's not just tax anymore. It's tax, penalties, interest, and also you're getting a lot of enforcement pressure now. So once that's been done, HMRC are going to switch from sort of gentle nudges on the shoulder to recovery. We're out to get our money, okay? Early on, you're going to get letters, okay? Then you're going to get stronger letters. Then you're going to get phone calls. Then it's going to go to debt management, okay? And at this stage, HMRC really, they're not asking you why. They're asking you how much and when are you paying, okay? They're getting more aggressive at this stage, okay? So HMRC, they publish debt data. And the tax debt balance has been sitting in the tens of billions. It's not really gone down since COVID. So I think I've said it on videos before. I think in March 25, it was reported at £42.8 billion, okay? It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And when the amount of money is that big, you can understand the policy changes from HMRC. And again, yeah, enforcement, it is a policy change. You know, in the past, you go back 18 months, 2 years ago, you could keep kicking HMRC into the long grass. And as long as you were communicating with them, they were fairly reasonable. Listen, that's changed. We've got to talk about time to pay. It's the line between really help and hell. What a lot of directors don't realise is the revenue will give you a payment plan. It's called a time to pay arrangement, okay? And that's if you can't pay your tax debts in full. Now, specifically, if we talk about that, HMRC will say that agreeing to time to pay arrangement can mean lower or no late payment penalties, and it depends on your situation. But this bit's crucial, right? A time to pay is only going to work if it's realistic. If you agree a fantasy plan that you can't maintain and it collapses, then the enforcement's going to get worse. And like, honestly, I see it all the time, especially if HMRC come into your business. It's horrible. Like, I really understand that. You know, you're fighting fires, you can't sleep at night, and then in the middle of a business day, you've got an enforcement agent in front of you. And you just want them out of your business. So you will agree to anything. You're not looking at cash flow. You're not looking at your financial numbers. You're not speaking to your bookkeeper. You just want them out. Because it gets rid of the pain for a few months till you fail. You fail your time to pay, and it just gets worse. Because if you fail with a time to pay, or you've just not engaged with them at all, and HMRC sees you're not engaging, or you're defaulting on agreements that they've set up for you, they're going to start to move to using enforcement tools. One of them is the taking control of goods, okay? I mentioned it on the introduction. This is a legal process where an enforcement agent can seize goods. It could be vehicles, it could be plant and machinery. I've seen it, tables and chairs in a restaurant at dinner time on a Friday. And what they do is they sell them for, in my opinion, a lot less than they're worth at auction. And your business is over. Can you imagine being a restaurant? You've buried your head in the sand with your VAT, and an enforcement agent just comes in. They come in with a clipboard, they go round, you sign this notice, and from that point, you don't own anything in your restaurant anymore. And you still don't pay your HMRC bill because you can't. And they come back in 30 days and remove everything. It's over, isn't it? Listen, this stuff can get deadly for your business. I want to talk to you about a few things that blindside a lot of directors, like statutory demands. People don't know what a stat demand is. It's a formal demand for payment. And if it is ignored, okay, let's say you owe, you're a person, you owe £5,000 or more. Bankruptcy is the next thing. If you're a company and it's 750 quid or more, and you ignore a stat demand, the next thing's a winding up petition. Like, once a winding up petition gets mentioned or it lands on your door, your options are very, very limited. Like, it's not just a tax bill anymore. It is literally a threat to your company's existence. And your ability to stay in control is starting to diminish. And like lots of directors, excuse me voice, I went to watch my team last night. They got absolutely battered and I was screaming for, well, not 90 minutes. I left at 75. It was that bad. I hear it off directors all the time. I've got a limited company, so I'm safe. That's what people hide behind. Now, it's a limited company, Chris. HMRC can't touch me. Well, guess what? Here's the truth. Usually, right, company tax debts are company debts. Okay, I get it. But your personal risk rises fast if you've done any of the following. And a lot of yous have. And listen, I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to give you the truth. You've mixed personal and business finances. You've got overdrawn directors' loan accounts. You've kept trading when clearly the company couldn't pay its debts. You know, you might have tried to do a Phoenix company without dealing with it properly. You know, you might have already triggered HMRC concerns about deliberate non-payment. Now, HMRC now, and this is in 2026, they've got the tools that are going to push you into the frame. There's a thing called a joint and several liability notice in certain circumstances. That's where you, as a director, can be made personally liable for tax debts. And obviously, like, you might be, I mean, I deal with directors, but directors have personal tax debts as well. And HMRC powers are going to apply to you. I mean, I get it all the time where a director will be talking to me. He's like, Chris, you know, will this insolvency process, will this administration, will this liquidation, is it going to deal with me self-assessment? I'm like, no. Like, you are on the hook for self-assessment, and HMRC can and will make you bankrupt if you don't start to engage with them. And that's what I want to talk about now. Like, what should you be doing instead? So I'll sort of give you a framework that I think is a good framework, and it'll help you. First of all, stop pretending these problems are temporary. Like, if you are using VAT and PAYE as working capital, you're not borrowing, you're causing yourself huge amounts of problems. And a lot of the time, you are delaying the inevitable. You've got to face it early. I say this all the time. You've got to see your business as it is, okay? Not worse than it is. You've got to look at the reality of your situation, because the sooner you can do that, the sooner you can get a little bit of acceptance around it. Step 2, you've got to get your returns in. Even if you can't pay them, right? Filing keeps credibility. Not filing turns into a red flag, and it can trigger estimates and determinations, and they're harder to unwind. So even if you can't pay the bill, get the return in. Because remember, if you don't put the return in, you might not be wanting to put the return in because you are frightened of what the number is, right? I'm a big believer is you've got to face the reality of your situation. And only once you face the reality of your situation can you start to look at doing things to actually maybe help and turn things around. And step 3, listen, Bigham, engage with the revenue before they get their foot on your neck. Like, HMRC will tell people that if you can't pay on time, you might be able to set up a payment plan. But talk to us. Like, they're not mind readers. Now, if you're going to speak to the revenue, the temptation is to agree to something just to get them off your back. But if you are agreeing a time to pay arrangement to sort of just get a bit of pressure off you, all that is doing is kicking the can down the road. With a time to pay, you've got an opportunity. You've got an opportunity to pay these tax arrears over a longer period of time. So make sure you make the most of it. And you want to be going to HMRC with a cash flow. Like, my thoughts are, you want to try and push it out as long as possible. You know, so if you think you can do it in 2 years, ask for 3 years, okay? Ask for 3 years. And sort of say to them, you've got to understand HMRC's position here. If you go through an insolvency route, which I'm coming to in a minute, it's very unlikely HMRC will get anything in most cases, or they certainly will be taking a huge haircut on what they are owed. So you're in a better position than you think, but you've got to negotiate strongly. Do not agree to a plan that collapses in a few months. Now, step 4, if the company is insolvent, right? And by the way, if you're still watching this video, you're definitely insolvent, or you've got a fetish with four-eyed baldies, okay? You're insolvent because you can't pay your debts on time. Now, I'm not saying on that basis you should go through insolvency, right? What I'm saying to you is I want you to ask this question. Even though you're insolvent right now, have you got any hope of recovering? Is there any way your business is going to get on a firm financial footing? And it might be that you're a seasonal business, or you've had someone knock you and you've not been able to pay the VAT and you've not been able to pay the PAYE, but you know you're about to get paid on this next job, or you're about to get on a job where you're going to earn some decent money. Now, if you genuinely believe that you can get through this, there's genuine rationale, then you should try. But if there's no hope of recovery, you need to stop digging and look at a controlled insolvency route. Because if you do it properly, it protects you far more than delaying HMRC, because they might go down a compulsory route. You know, it could be a liquidation where you put a full stop in the business, you voluntarily liquidate it. And even in that scenario, you could still buy the assets back out of your business and start again. You can do that. You've got to do it properly. You've got to get an independent valuation. You've got to pay a fair market value. You might want to use a tool called administration, where you put the company into admin. It's seen as a rescue process. When you're in admin, nobody can touch you. HMRC can't wind you up when you're in administration. And in most administrations, something called a pre-pack happens. So you basically line up to buy the business back with the administrator. So you go into admin at 9 o'clock in the morning. The first job of the administrator is to sell the parts of the business that are valuable back to you in a new company. Listen, let me wrap this up. What actually happens if you don't pay taxes? It's going to start with penalties, interests. It's going to then get over to recovery, enforcement, stat demands, winding up petitions. And if you've behaved badly and your personal finances are tangled up, you could end up personally liable for this. If you're a UK director who's behind with VAT, PAYE, corporation tax, or all three, don't wait for it to get ugly. Get in touch with us. We'll guide you. We'll show you what works, what doesn't work, okay? Now, if you've enjoyed this video and you want more information, I want you to go over there. It's going to tell you exactly how to set up a time to pay arrangement with HMRC, what you do say, what you don't say, exactly what you can do, and hopefully it'll help you. Chris Worden, thanks for your time.